now that you have your startup idea, the next thing you have to do is launch. And in the last 5 years, maybe more, the best way to launch is through the tech press. It's free, but it comes with a price. See, pitching bloggers is much like having sex. They have needs too, right? And our sexy friend here, Alejandro, that's his expertise. He helps startups with a lot of things. He's a mentor, he's founded accelerators, but what he really, really knows is how to deal with the press. He's also the co-founder of the new blog called Tech.eu, which Robin Waters is the founding editor of. That's right, I got it. And Alejandro is going to contribute to it. So please welcome to the stage my friend Alejandro.
Don't call my name, don't call my name, Alejandro. I'm not your babe, I'm not your babe. Fernando, don't wanna kiss, don't wanna touch, just smoke one cigarette and hush. Don't call my name, don't call my name, Alejandro.
That's awesome. Can you hear me? Yeah, there you go. It's actually Lady Gaga gave me a fantastic cue. You know, every time I went to the border control and they took my passport, they went like, I said like, Alex, it's fine. I go like, okay. And now every time I go, they start going like, Alejandro. It's like, fuck you. Anyway, so I think everyone is kind of tired right now. I was looking at your faces and you were like going like sideways right now. So can everyone just stand up? Let's stand up. They've told me that you guys are like Daft Punk startups. So you're faster, you're bigger, you're harder. So how are you feeling right now? What the fuck is that? How are you feeling now? Strag, and you guys there also at the top. So how are you guys feeling? There we go. Again? Can we jump now? 1, 2. Yay! There we go. Now you can sit down. So this is an interesting presentation. I think it's a typical presentation we get when there's a blogger or someone that writes in media about. So how do you get press, okay? It's the biggest question. I'm not gonna give you any secret sauce, anything you probably haven't heard of. I'm just gonna repeat what a lot of my peers have been saying for many years now, but people just don't listen, okay? So it's very easy, just listen clearly about this stuff. So the major issue is there are too many startups. Okay, there's an explosion of startups in Europe in general, in the US, everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's a startup. Everywhere you look, there's an accelerator. Everywhere you look, there's someone that is doing a mobile app. Okay, there's on one side you have, one side you have your brother that's probably starting something. If it's not your brother, it's either your partner, the one that's starting something. If it's not your partner, it's definitely your mom that's starting something. But everywhere you turn around, there's always someone saying, oh, I was thinking about doing this mobile app, or I was thinking about doing this website. It's like, okay, so what's going on here? Reality is, and get this is especially important for Eastern Europe countries, it's not about the quality. We're not talking about the best startup is getting press. It's not about the best thing is getting press, the best product, the best features. The game is not there. Take that out of your head because that's not where the game is. Actually, it's all about attention. It's all about who is capable of doing something and gonna remember. And I'll give you a live example we just had today. I just took a picture of my friend Paul that's over there. And he loves black and white pictures, so I put it on Instagram and I put it with a black and white filter. I posted while I was at the workshop just 2 hours ago, and I tagged it with the hashtag of the conference. And one of the startups here on the startup stage, what they do is they track Instagram, they get these pictures and they print them live. So I got a message on my Instagram saying, hey, your picture is already printed. You can come to our booth and take it. And I was like, what the fuck? This is a really cool way of pitching someone. So I actually went there, took my picture. Actually, Paul has his picture over there, so maybe he can show you afterwards. And I talked with the guys, and I asked them like, okay, so what is your startup about? So that is the way you pitch. You have to be different. This is about being different. This is about garnering the attention because there's a lot of startups. So how are you going to pitch me? How are you going to do something that's going to make me remember you? And that's the key here. Make me remember you. Now, so how do we do this? This is the interesting question. First of all, do your fucking homework, okay? Every time I get an email from someone, and Robin here, he's been answering emails for the past week or something like that. Emails from people that they go like, oh, here's our press release. It's like, didn't you read our first post on the blog was, we don't do press releases. We don't cover launches. We don't cover new apps. We don't do that. You haven't done your homework. You don't even know where you're sending stuff. Just because you saw the point of, hey, these guys are writing about tech, I'm going to send them whatever the fuck I want. Well, do your homework. How do you do your homework? The first thing, an important thing is realize that not all the blogs or publications are equal. You cannot publish the same stuff everywhere. So if you're trying to get published on TechCrunch, probably that's not going to work with Ben on the Wall Street Journal. And it's definitely not going to work for us either. So make sure you understand what kind of things these publications are covering, because each of them are going to cover a different stuff. And this is a matter of doing homework. And the problem with homework is it takes time. And a lot of people don't take the time to do media, to do PR, okay? Actually, make sure you understand who your target is. There's a lot of people that they'll go, okay, so my target are these girls. And then they go pitching these guys. It's like, okay, let me play this again. Or maybe, oh, there we go. So your target are these girls, and you're pitching these guys. Wrong, okay? Sometimes I talk with startups that they go, we're in the fashion industry, or we're in the design industry. And they go like, yeah, we want to launch on TechCrunch Disrupt. It's like, why would you want to do that? Oh, I don't know, because it's, the conference in Europe, or we have to publish there. Why would you want to do that? Your readers are not there. Your audience is not there. So make sure you understand who your target is. Because depending on your target, you're going to want to be featured in one place or the other one. And this, again, is homework. It's something you actually have to do at home. Now, for me, I think the most critical part about pitching the press or bloggers is essentially what I call the binary conjecture, which is essentially someone comes to you and they go like, you talk with a startup and you go like, hey, your startup is actually really interesting. Why don't we keep talking and you keep telling me about your startup? And they go like, oh, no, we're not ready yet. We're not launching. And I always think, this is so stupid. You have access to someone that can actually write about you, that's actually willing to write about you because what you're doing is interesting, but you're saying that, no, right now we don't want. Fast forward 3 months. 3 months later, the same person comes to you and they go like, hey, I want you to publish us. We're launching, so write about us. And the problem with that is human relationships don't work like that. This is the equivalent, so you see something in real life. This is the same thing as going to a restaurant for dinner and watching two people on a table and go like, sitting down next to them and saying, hey, what's up? Do you want to be my friend? It just doesn't work like that. That's not how you actually create relationships with the media. The problem is that people get really over hyperactive about this stuff. So if they push you an email and they go like, hey, publish this thing about us, the next thing you hear from them is this. For God's sake, blog about me. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you, okay? People get really, really mad if you don't write about them. So the evil person is you that you don't want to write about them. When you actually talked with them 3 months ago and you said, hey guys, this is really interesting, let's keep the channel open. Yeah, sure, whatever. So it's not binary. It's not, now I want to publish, now I don't want to publish. Actually, the reality is that media is about relationships. Media is about knowing people. It's about becoming friends with people, okay? So here you actually have a bunch of people that are in media. Ben is over there, so the guy in the blue shirt could actually talk right now with Ben. They could become friends. My partner, Robin, is there. Mike Butcher is on that other corner. Befriend them, touch them, hug them, okay? Create a relationship. Media is about creating tangible relationships. No, Ben is saying, don't touch me. But maybe after a couple of vodkas, he changed his mind. My point with this is, media is about teamwork, okay? This is about creating these relationships. If you don't have a relationship with a journalist or a blogger, this is not going to work. Actually, do you know what happens when you don't have a team and you go out? This happens, okay? This happens. You don't want to end up like that, okay? So if you take something, a key takeaway from this talk is start relating, start making friends with these people, not for the sake of looking something from them or asking them something, but just for the sake of becoming friends with them, of understanding their job, of understanding how they work. Help them out when they need help. Don't go there in the first place and ask for help and ask for, hey, I'll pitch you. You have to write about me. Essentially, do not force me to ignore you. If you become a nuisance, if you keep pushing me, I'll just end up ignoring you. So just take it calm, create a relationship. And once you know me, once we've talked several times, you can email me and say, hey, Alex, would you be interested in this? And I can be very honest and I'll say, well, we don't write about this, but if you pitch it this other way, maybe we can kind of extract an interesting story from this. The other thing I see a lot of times is even when you get published, things get screwed in the process. And this is very typical with PR companies. The problem with a lot of this stuff is most of the journalists or bloggers you're going to talk to do not have a background in rocket science. Okay? And sometimes the problem is not the journalist, the problem is with the person pitching them. It's like, okay, so what part of this didn't you understand? It's like, well, I don't have a PhD in Hadoop and MapReduce and big data. I'm sorry about that, okay? So make sure that when you pitch someone, that when you talk with the media, you remove all the hype terms. You remove all the technical terms that you're using. And trust me, you can pitch your stuff without using those terms. Because some people go like, no, I cannot pitch you this if I don't say the word big data. Because my company is big data, because my company is cloud computing shit. I have so many startups that the first thing they do when they pitch is, oh, we are a cloud-based SaaS solution. And like, what does that even fucking means? Okay, can you actually describe me what do you do? No, we're mobile, slow-mo, whoa, M2M. It's like, okay, so what exactly is that? Okay, so those are terms that marketing people use. We don't give a shit. I need to tell a story to my audience, which means I need to understand what you're solving and why you're solving it. So if you cannot tell me that, I cannot communicate this to others. My job is to communicate what you're doing to others. So make my life easier by not putting me kind of fences in the way there. Essentially, and this again is typically from Eastern Europe, is we don't care about the fucking features. That's not why we're going to write about you. It's not about the features. I know I'm an engineer myself, and I know how important for us engineers is to have fantastic amount of features. And you get into something that has this amazing thing that goes super fast, and you want to cry. I know that. Us like engineers, we want to hug each other and see, have you seen how fast that went? It's like, whoa. This reminds me, there's an episode of The Big Bang Theory where they're switching on and off the light through the internet. And Penny comes in and she goes like, so what's the big deal? And they're like, whoa, a guy in Australia switched the lights off and on. And she goes like, why don't you just walk and switch it on and off? Okay, well, this is the same. She doesn't get that. We're engineers. We love that shit. Like thinking that someone in Australia is routing through all the cables and is switching our lights, that's what turns us on. Okay, but the media doesn't give a shit about that. The audience doesn't give a shit about that. My readers don't give a shit about that. You need to tell them why they should use that. And the why is not a list of features. Actually, I'm going to tell you things that are non-bloggable. In the wonderful life of beautiful unicorns with rainbows, there's some things that are just not bloggable. First of all, to be born is not news. I stole it from Mike. He always pitches this. Just for the sake that you just went live, that's not news. That's not even important. Okay, the same thing happens with this kind of guy, the design guy comes to you and he goes like, yeah, we just launched a new version of our app. It's not just the new app, it's the new version of our app. I couldn't care less, okay? Do you know how many apps get released every day? It's like, I don't give a shit that your new app was released. That's not news, that's not something I'm gonna write about. That's non-bloggable, okay, in most cases. The founder story. Some people get very excited about their founding story. Some founding stories are mind-blowing, mind you, okay? But very rare. Very rarely you see those cases. The normal story is, oh yeah, we went to college and then we dropped out and then we decided that we couldn't get a job in the industry, so we decided to do a startup. Why don't you write about our story? It's like, yeah, I think I've heard this before many times, okay? So sometimes the stories, they're just not good enough. What I call the brochures, do not send a brochure. This has to do with the features. When I ask someone, like, send me your story about your startup, the next thing I get on the email is basically a list of features of, yeah, we have this many users, we have this many features, and with this we can do this, and we are this big, and our dick is this big. It's like, you know what? I don't give a shit. That's a brochure. That's the kind of thing you see when you go to buy a car. It's like, the car has this big engine, and it goes this fast, and it has 5 doors. It's like, okay, I can see that. I don't need you to pitch me that. I can go to your website and actually see that. Now, what I cannot see is, why are you doing this? Why would you want to do this? What's the story behind this? Why did you even start it or attempted to build this product? Okay? And most of all, it's like the boring shit, which is called press releases, which is, don't do that. Don't you ever send a press release. It's horrible. It basically shows me that you don't care about me. It's basically you outsource something that should be critical to you, which is communicating what you do. That should be your core thing. I mean, a lot of investors, when they see a startup that the one that's pitching is the PR person, they won't invest. I don't want to hear the PR representative. I want to hear the CEO. I want to hear the founder. This is the same stuff. If you send me a press release, like really old school crafted press release, I'm just going to throw that away. I'm actually going to feel like you don't give a shit about my job, okay? Actually, most of the times I just answer like, come and fuck you, because I feel that you don't value what I'm doing, okay? So just please don't do that. Be original. Send me an email with my name. I don't know, I remember giving a workshop once, and I was talking about this stuff, and it was in Poland, and a friend of ours, she sent me an email, and she said like, okay, I'm going to try and be original. And she said something, hey Alex, I'm the hot blonde chick that you gave a workshop to. That got my attention. I said like, okay, I do remember that. Okay, keep going, okay? Those are the kind of stuff that, brings you back to who they were. Remind me who you were, where we talked. Be human, essentially. It's that simple. Be fucking human. First of all, also another thing that pisses me so much is, do not make me research you. If you're pitching me and I have to do research to find your contact information, I'm just not going to do it. We don't have time to do that kind of things, okay? So just make it as easier as you can to give me all the information I need, okay? Don't take 3 weeks to answer an email if I'm asking you for extra information. Things like that. These are kind of basic stuff. I mean, I'm not talking about rocket science here. For God's sake, finish your website. Really, you laugh about this shit, but it's so typical. I go to a conference, I talk with a startup, and I go like, oh my God, I need to send them something. I go to the web page, and there is no contact information. There is no Twitter, there's no email, there's that fucking ugly web form that no one uses it, that is fucked up. That every time I see a web form, it's like, you have to be kidding me, right? Why the fuck can you put your Twitter? Why the fuck can you put your Skype, your email? Really, it's not that hard. So make sure your website is actually finished, even before you talk to the media. So just to give you an example, this is normally my inbox on a Monday. Okay, it's horrible. Every time you open the inbox, it's like, oh my God, I just don't want to look at it. Your story, you better be fucking awesome if you want me to answer you. Okay? It has to be really good. So that's why I was telling you, you're basically competing for my attention on my inbox. So your goal is to make that story really good. If you're not different from the other emails I'm receiving on a Monday morning, then it will probably take me 2 weeks to answer you. Now, if your email stands out, that would be the first one I'm going to answer. Okay? Just don't make it too crazy either. Okay? The people get fancy ideas when they say this stuff. It takes time to answer email. just so you know, some people get really mad at me because they go like, yeah, we've sent you an email, and they tweet you, have you received my email? It's like, yeah, the internet didn't broke. I got your email, your email is safe on my inbox. Don't worry, I'll get to it. And they tweet you 2 hours later, have you read our email? No, I haven't. If I had answered your email, you would have gotten an answer, okay? But I haven't got there yet. So it takes patience. Think about this as a two-way street. Okay, you're only seeing you sending me your email. So you go like, what the fuck? This guy should actually answer me really fast. I just sent him the email like 2 hours ago. What you don't see is that I have like 150 people doing the same thing at the same time. Okay, so it's kind of hard to compete with that. Don't take it personally. Some people just freak out. It's like, okay, you ignore me for 2 weeks. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I always try to be very polite. I always try to answer every single email I get. It might take me 2 to 3 weeks to answer you, but I will answer you, okay? So don't take it personal. It's not personal. There's no kind of personal vendetta to someone that's like, I don't like this guy, I don't like this startup, I just won't answer. Sometimes it's things like conferences. We're in conferences, so we are cut out from the internet because this morning the Wi-Fi was just flaky, so we couldn't connect, so I cannot answer emails. So then I go back to the hotel and I have 150 emails to answer. So I prioritize. So don't take it personal. This is not about you, it's about my inability to answer as fast as I can. And move on. Just let it go. Some people, and I have this with Mike a lot of the times. I get some friends that come to me and they go like, hey, we've seen Mike Butcher. Can you actually introduce us to him? I go like, yeah, sure, I can introduce you to him. So I put them an email. I first ask Mike, I say, hey, Mike, do you want to talk with this guy? And he goes like, yeah, sure, send them my way. So I put them an email, and the next email I get 2 hours later is, oh, Alex, Mike hasn't answered us. It's like, okay, he's probably busy. No, yeah, but seriously, Mike hasn't answered us in 2 days. It's like, yeah, probably he's busy. 3 days later, but really, Mike he's not answering us. It's like, let it fucking go. I mean, he's probably busy, he's probably doing something. If he has an answer, he's probably not gonna answer. Just move on. Next time you see him on a conference, just give him a beer and he'll talk to you, okay? So just stay calm, move on. Don't wait for people to answer you. Some people are very busy, they won't answer you. And most of all, don't be an ass. Okay, there's people that they send you emails and it's like, you owe me your life. So you better fucking pitch us and write about us. It's like, okay, fine, okay. So just be polite with people. We are human beings too. We have also our daily jobs. I'm gonna give you a secret. We don't make any fucking money with this. The only one that makes money is this gentleman here. I mean, the other of us working at this blogging, we don't make money with this shit. So we have jobs too. So really, don't be an ass with us. We're trying our best to cover as much as we can. Now, the key thing is to give us a good story. But one of the things I've seen over and over when someone tells you or talks about stories is, okay, so a story, what is a story? And I remember I was recently watching a panel with Robin, and someone asked them, like, so what is a story, Robin? And Robin said, like, well, a story is like this. He couldn't really define what he wanted as a story. Story is this fluffy concept that few people actually, everyone, when you read a story, everyone goes like, yeah, this is a great story. But when you have to actually write it, you go like, okay, so how do I start to write this story? And then you go all facty on people and you start doing a brochure instead of a real story. So I'm gonna give you a couple of key points as to what a story looks like. So yeah, this is the kind of face when someone goes like, write me a story. And they go like, what? Write me a story, what? Okay. So story, sure, how do we do that? This is a definition I love because the more you know about story, the more you realize how true it is. Okay, a story is a universal human experience wrapped inside a culture-specific expression. Okay, so what is a universal human experience? Who can tell me what is a universal human experience? Someone? Love, and what is love? Good question. Good question. Love, crying, sadness, those are emotions. That is what a story is about. It's about emotions. It's not about features. It's not about how big my dick is. Okay? It's about the why. It's about what kind of emotions do I trigger on people when they read that. That is the key to storytelling. Now, the other part is culture-specific expression, which happened to me recently in Spain when someone was pitching something about Kim Kardashian, and all the Spaniards were like, who? And I was like, fuck. You know, you pitch that in the US and everyone knows who Kim Kardashian is. You pitch that in Spain and no one knows. But you talk about the stupid president of the government and everyone knows who he is. So, you know, that works. So there's a culture part to every story. So then again, as I was telling you, because you're doing your homework, you should know what kind of culture, what kind of audiences this kind of medium or that medium are having. And with that, you can actually tailor your story. But this is a very broad definition of what story is. So I'm going to give you 3 key points, 3 key takeaways about story. The first one is real stories, real powerful stories have a protagonist. That means they have someone that's experiencing something, an emotional whatever, with a name and a last name. Number one mistake that people make when they write a story is they talk about their brand. Our product is being used for this and that. Our brand can do this and can do that. I don't care about your brand. I don't care about your product. I care about a person that uses your product. This is why I always recommend people when you're using things like Twitter, I don't like Twitters that have the brand names. I like Twitters that are personal because for me, it's a lot more cooler to talk with the CEO or the CIO of a company than with the name of the brand. Okay, so a story is about someone with a name and a last name, with a whole background, with a whole story behind them. They ended up using your product because of a reason. They had something happening to them, and that's why they ended up using your product. There's a whole backstory there. So it's a human person. Now, the second point that's very important is desire. The protagonist of a story has to have a desire. And when you translate this in terms of startups, there has to be a pain point. There has to be a reason why this person went through all of this. So if you're telling a story about someone that there's no point on telling the story, then there is no story. Okay, there has to be a goal to the story. But most importantly, that goal has to involve a lot of conflict. The best stories are the ones that have a lot of conflict. So someone dying, or someone nearly dying, or someone nearly being deported. All those stories are super powerful because there's a lot of conflict involved in the story. So the more conflict you can add to your story, the more complex and conflicted your users that are using your product are, the better stories you're going to get, okay? And finally, emotions. There's a lot of people that keep talking that, you know, you shouldn't pitch emotions. This is business, you know, you should pitch the data, how many users, what's the traction, and that's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't pitch that. You definitely should. But there's always a backstory, an emotional backstory that's way more powerful. I just leave you with something. You see this. I don't even tell you what happened, but you see this and something triggers in your brain. This is the same thing with stories. You read something and you like it or not, something is going to trigger in your brain. That's what us as writers are looking for. That is what media is looking for. We want to inform people, but we want to inform in a way that you actually remember. And the best way to remember something is by having a story behind it. Now, the problem with storytelling is that now it's kind of fashionable. Everyone talks about stories and do this story, do this other thing in story format. And so everything looks like a nail. And so everyone goes like, oh yeah, you should do a story for this, do a story for that. Oh yeah, meet X that does this, or it's the X of the Y. There's a lot of like frame and formats to do stories. Just try to be different. There's many ways to tell the same kind of story by being different. But be very careful with things like this. If I ask you what's going to happen, what do you think is going to happen? Someone? Someone? It will broken up. If I show you this, what's going to happen next? Okay. This is what we call using the prediction power of the brain. Your brain knows that the next frame is going to be mud in your face. It's going to be the shit hit the fan. Okay? This is what happens when you're using what we call a cliche story. This is why the founder story of a lot of people doesn't work, because I've seen it many times. I've heard it many times. So you pitching me those kind of stories are not going to work because I've seen it before. And if I've seen it before, it is not an original story. And if it's not an original story, I'm not interested in, because I don't react in the same way. So make sure you avoid cliches when you're presenting stuff. Okay? I'll give you a very good tool to think about cliches. So when you're going to pitch someone, when you're going to pitch a journalist, the first idea that pops into your mind, discard it. That's a cliche. The second idea you get into your mind, discard it too. That's cliche too. The third idea you get in your brain, that pretty is slightly original. And the fourth one, that's a good one, okay? It takes time. This is why it's so hard. This is why few people actually take the time to do this right. But this is the best way to actually pitch things to people. Now, concluding and closing up, please do your homework. I know you have a lot of things to do. I know you have to do your product. I know you have to do your startup. But take the time to actually understand and learn about the persons you're trying to talk with. Media is about relationships. Never forget this. Befriend the people in the media. They're not mean. They're not evil. They're people. Okay, they're human beings. It's much better to be with them than be alone and experiencing this. We don't care about features. Features is not the big thing. Tell me why. Tell me the story behind that. Tell me why people should be interested in this. And definitely the answer is not because the feature, because we have the only feature. Sometimes it might be, but it's not the usual thing. Finally, find a good story to tell. That is the number one thing that most people are going to react to. So thank you very much. I hope it was useful. And you have my information there for anything you want.
And we have time for a few questions. So, questions? All right. Here first and then pass it back.
Why are you wearing a hat in a room?
Why am I wearing a hat? That's a very good question. Someone has an answer for that? Apart than the fact that I'm getting bald? Huh? It's a what?
Trademark.
Trademark, exactly. It's a more complicated story. I bought this hat. I've always loved hats. And I bought this when I was studying in Berkeley in California. And I always thought, like, what the fuck? Here people can actually wear whatever they want and no one looks at them. You know, you go through Berkeley and you can see weird people wearing all kind of shit. And I said, like, I want to be like them. You know, every time I go to Spain and I try to put a hat, like, everyone looks crazy at me. So I said, like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to buy it and I'm going to wear it every time. And now I'm a slave to the hat, because if I don't wear the hat, people will stop me and they'll go like, where the fuck is your hat? People actually do not recognize me without the hat. I had someone recently in a conference saying like, hey, dude, I was in your talk and you weren't there. I'm like, yes, I was moderating the panel. So like, no, that was a guy with a hat. And I went like, and he's like, oh my God, it was you. And like, yeah, it was me. Okay, so that's the story with the hat. But definitely the hat is a trademark. It makes me stand out from everyone else, which is very cool, because now everyone will remember the crazy Spaniard with a hat. That's how all my peers actually introduced me. Oh yeah, Alex, the crazy guy with a hat. So it's a good trademark. I'm different. I stand out. I grasp your attention.
Alejandro, thanks for your story. It's really amazing. And the question is about the headlines of the emails. Which are the catchy ones? What would you recommend? If I write the email for you, you will first see the headline. What should it be?
Well, to be honest, I don't look that much at like the headlines of the emails, because in the end, when you get as much email as I get, people write so many fucked up email headlines that I cannot discard them anymore, because maybe I discard one that's important and it's from Robin or it's from someone else that's important. So it's like, shit, I have to read all of them. But if I open an email and I see like 3 pages of email, I'm gonna go like, this will wait for afterwards. And those are the kind of emails that I'm gonna answer 3 weeks later. Now, if I open an email and I see 2 phrases, that's the kind of email I'm going to answer immediately, because it doesn't feel like it's going to take me a long time, so I can actually answer immediately.
Alex, have you heard any good story recently?
Any good?
Story recently.
Recently? I keep hearing all kind of interesting stories recently. For example, one from Robin, he nearly got deported at the airport. You know, he's a very smart guy, and he went to the airport, and he said like, yeah, I'm checking it to Ukraine. And they said like, okay, sir, can you give us ID? He showed his ID, and they went like, no, you know, in Ukraine you need a passport. And it's like, interesting. So he actually had to ask his brother to get his car from the airport, drive to his place, take his passport from there, drive back through a traffic jam, hand him the passport to get here. And he actually made it like 10 minutes before the plane. So that's a story that happened yesterday.
Anybody else?
I heard you saying that you don't get the money doing your blogging job.
Yep.
So you get the 100 emails per day just for fun, or?
That's a very good question. So there's some people that do this and they actually earn money, but very few of them. Okay, only the people that are full-time working at this. I'm not full-time writing stuff, so it's unfair for me to ask for a salary. I have my own company, and we do storytelling, and we do a bunch of things, and I earn my life through that. But I love writing. I love covering interesting stories. So the problem with that is it comes with the drawback of having gazillion emails on your inbox. But I'm fine with that. I love interacting with people. I love being social with people. And most of all, what people don't see is that those kind of relationships end up evolving into friendship, and with time, actually, they become collaborations. I mean, I would never have done this with Robin, the Tech.eu thing, if we hadn't met several times, if we hadn't been together, if we hadn't exchanged emails with him and with the other partners we have. So you never really know what's going to happen with those people that email you, so I'm always very positive about interacting with people. I try not to be an asshole about that. So I like it. I think it's a positive drawback if you want to see it like that.
Thank you for inspiration. And can you advise some tips? You advised it already. Okay, it's hard to put a question. Sorry.
You see, first you think about the question.
Yeah, and do you think that any IT guy can write a pitch or not? And what the kind of IT guy can write a pitch? Because it's quite hard to combine IT and pitching.
Well, I'm one of those rare cases, if you want to look at one. I'm a computer engineer specialized in artificial intelligence and neuroscience. So, you know, I think it's hard. I actually started my career by being a hacker. So I used to be in the computer security industry. So I think it's hard to be more techie than that. I was coding in assembly. I was coding on web systems. I was doing exploits. You know, it doesn't get more technical than that. Truth is, with time, I realized that the things I was telling and the way I was explaining stuff, they weren't reaching. Yeah, I could see on people's faces that what I was trying to communicate wasn't really reaching them. So I started shifting this. I started changing, and I started learning what kind of things, how can I explain this in a different way. I think the best teacher I ever had was my dad. He kept calling me on the phone saying like, oh my God, this stupid machine did this and did that. And I had to explain to him. And I remember the first calls were things like, okay, so what is the hexadecimal code that you're seeing? What is the DLL that crashed the blah, blah, blah? And with time, I realized that what he was really asking me was, hey, Alex, I'm going to lose the document I've been working on for the past 2 hours. So after that, he said like, oh, I have a blue screen of death. And I would say like, don't worry, Dad, your document is still there. And he was like so happy. He said like, oh my God, thank you very much. And he just hung on me. And I'm like, okay, this is awesome. I just realized how different you can pitch this. Everyone can become like that. I would advise you to start cultivating the powers of observation. The best way to do this is to actually pitch whatever you're going to pitch to someone, pitch it to a female, and especially someone that is not in the tech industry. I say female because we guys are kind of stupid. You pitch something to a dude and we go like, oh my God, that's awesome. If you pitch it to your partner, to your wife, or to your girlfriend, she'll go like, what the fuck is wrong with you? How many beers have you been drinking? If she tells you that, trust her, she knows what she's talking about. And I'm not kidding about this. Females have a much sensitive feeling about stuff and specifically about stupid ideas. So trust them when they tell you this is a stupid idea. Trust them because they're right. But do this exercise. Pitch it to someone, a female, women that are not in the tech environment. If they don't get it, you're failing at someone. Ask them to actually repeat the pitch to you. What did you actually get from that? And you'll see how different it looks like. And you'll go like, no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. When you get engaged into that kind of thing, your pitch was failing somewhere. So this is a very easy exercise to do actually at home. So
I have a question.
last question.
Yeah, I have two questions. The first, I'm curious, what is your job if editing is your hobby? And the second one, actually, I work as a PR manager at Mobiscope, and I know that journalists don't really like PR managers. So I'm thinking of rephrasing my specialty in LinkedIn and in emails when I represent myself. So how would you recommend to rephrase that it would sound more likable for journalists to get emailed from me?
So this is a very interesting question. So how do I earn my money? I have a company that's called Press42, and we started with a product. The market kind of whacked us. So instead of going against the market, I decided to go in the same direction as the market. So what I was getting is a lot of people loved my presentations. A lot of people loved the stories I told. So I started getting people asking me like, oh, can you help us do the same kind of stories? So I ended up focusing the company on what we call organizational storytelling, which is the use of storytelling as a business tool. So big companies and small companies hire me to teach them how to use story within their organization. So we work from very tiny companies, from like startups where we do pitching, all the way to big companies like Coca-Cola, where they use these tools internally to communicate and to actually understand each other in big corporations, which is the biggest issue. So that's where I make my money, and that's why I'm very passionate about story. And the second question was about how do you pitch this if you're refocusing your career. I would say I'm sick of all the kind of marketing stunts. Like every time someone comes to me and go like, yeah, I'm a community manager. I've done a PhD in community management. And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you, okay? This is about human beings. This is about understanding human behavior. The best tool you can ever have to work in story crafting, in communications, is powers of observation and learning human behavior. It's essential. And for me, someone that, for example, knows human psychology is someone that I would hire on the spot. Because it's the kind of person that I know I can trust to write the good thing. Remember, it's not about the technology. People keep focusing on, oh, I'm an expert on LinkedIn, I'm an expert on Twitter, I'm an expert on Facebook. I don't care about that. People shouldn't care about that. Actually, you should be positioned as, in my case, I say, I tell stories. That's what I do. I'm good at telling stories. I'm good at communicating. I don't care if it's on an email. I don't care if it's on a blog. I don't care if it's on the stage. Yeah, I'm definitely better at one or the other one, but that's not the point. The point is I communicate. That's what I do. That's my expertise. So don't focus too much on one specific tool. Get better at understanding stuff. The best way to actually pitch this is showing. Don't tell me, show me. So start writing about this. Start writing a blog about showing your expertise on human behavior, on how people react to communication, on how people react to the kind of things you write. Start getting feedback, start getting comments, and show that as a proof. Is, you know what, I can use all this stuff. You just go to my blog and this is me. This is what I do. Hope that was helpful. Okay, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to be around, so follow the hat.